This is Caleb. Today is Caleb's birthday. So Caleb is my little brother, and I've actually been wanting to make a video like this to talk a little bit more about who he is and why we love to celebrate his birthday every single year. So Caleb was born on September 4th, 2001, I think sometime in the morning. You have to fact check that with my mom. But he was born, and when he came out, he looked healthy on the outside. Everything looked good. But he had a lot of trouble breathing, and he kept being put on oxygen and taken off, and he'd turn purple and blue, and he'd put back on oxygen and taken off, and he'd turn purple and blue. And this went on for a few hours until they eventually obviously had to diagnose what the heck was going on with him. So they took some x-rays, and they actually found out that one very big, very important organ was missing. And it turns out that Caleb was born without a lung. And what he was diagnosed with was called a diaphragmatic hernia, which means when he was developing as a little baby in my mom, his diaphragm had a hole in it, and his intestines traveled up through that hole and filled the cavity in his chest where his lung was supposed to grow, and it blocked where his lung was supposed to grow. And so he just was born with the one lung and then like a little lobe of the other one. And so he couldn't breathe. And this was really scary for my parents. They'd had two super like normal healthy babies before him, and so this was all very new, and they hadn't caught it on an ultrasound, and so it was very unexpected as well. So they had to take my little brother and life flight him from American Fork, Utah to Salt Lake City, Utah. So my mom was left in the hospital in American Fork, and because she just had given birth and had to stay there to, be treated and make sure she was okay. And my little brother was put, with all these tubes inside of him, was put on a helicopter and had an emergency flight to a specialized children's hospital in Salt Lake. At which point my dad had to leave my mom in the hospital and go be with the baby in Salt Lake. So then Caleb was sent to Salt Lake City to Primary Children's, where he underwent emergency surgery. And they essentially opened up his entire stomach, put all of his intestines and stomach stuff back in his stomach. And I'm not sure what else they did. I don't know a lot about the surgery. But he was sewn back up and put on a lot of tubes. And these are some pictures of him in the hospital after surgery, and it's a little bit scary. So I remember visiting him quite often. I remember reading to him. I remember just looking at him and being there with him. I remember the scrubbing we would have to do from shoulder to fingertips at Primary Children's to make sure we didn't bring any germs into the hospital with all of the very fragile babies. And I also remember the room that he was kept in. And he shared the hospital room with a couple other babies that had similar or the same condition that he had. And he was the only one that actually survived the hospital stay, which was kind of crazy. And we look back on that, and he survived. And not only did he survive, but he actually had a really quick recovery, faster than any of the doctors really expected, faster than anybody had really quoted to my parents. And he got to come home much earlier than they thought he would. And I remember when he came home, and some people get to feed their little brothers with a bottle, and we got to push formula through a syringe, through his feeding tube, which was a lot cooler in my opinion. So Caleb was sent home from the hospital early, and right then that really showed us that he was so resilient, even as a baby, even as an infant, where he didn't really know anything about what was going on. His spirit was just so resilient. And little did we know, but resilience would be just a defining trait of Caleb. But Caleb did really well. And one thing that the doctors told my parents when they left the hospital with him, and I'm sure through many of the follow-up appointments that he had to have, was that he may not have the energy like all the other kids do. He may not run, he may not play sports, he may not be able to do everything that you would expect a kid to do, and the way that your other kids have done. And the one thing they told him is to let him set his own limits, set his own pace, and decide, what he was capable of. And somebody forgot to knock on wood, because that's exactly what he did. He decided he would have no limits set for himself. He became the biggest ball of energy. He would run and play and want to do everything everyone else did, and you would never have guessed that he was missing an organ that you used to breathe with. So that's Caleb. I mean, besides his scar, which we affectionately call his shark bite, you wouldn't have any idea that had happened to him. He never let that hold him back. Now, after he had kind of recovered from surgery and was growing up and getting a few years into life, he actually was coming up upon his next big mountain to climb. And anybody who knows Caleb now would never believe me if they didn't already know this, but Caleb actually really struggled to talk when he was younger. So much so that we would have a speech therapist come to our house, I think weekly, to come help him learn how to talk. But he learned how to talk, and just like with his big giant surgery that never held him back, he's never stopped talking since the day he learned how to talk. So, and again, anybody who knows Caleb knows that he loves to talk to people. And so he overcame that. But it was, again, just the beginning of the mountain he was about to climb. When he was going into junior high, we had actually noticed that he was really struggling with certain things in school and certain subjects in school. And right before he went to junior high, he was actually diagnosed with what's called nonverbal learning disorder, which falls on the autism spectrum. And I actually really hate that it's called a disorder, because it kind of is denoting that there's something wrong with him or wrong with anybody who has a disorder. And I actually disagree pretty strongly with that. It really is just that he's different. He learns differently, he thinks differently, and it allows him to do a lot of really cool things, but it also makes a lot of things that are really easy for most people really hard. So with nonverbal learning disorder, without getting into super specific details, it is kind of a more complex diagnosis. Nonverbal means that it's not that they can't talk, it's that they can't understand things that aren't spoken. So things like nonverbal social cues are really hard for them to understand and comprehend and make sense of. They also struggle with spatial reasoning. So our experience with Caleb as he went through junior high and high school was tough, to say the least, and he has been a trooper through it all. If you think it's tough being the family member of someone, and if you are a family member of somebody who struggles with any kind of learning disorder or anything like that, you know that it's hard because you have to watch this person that you love struggle with things that a lot of people don't struggle with and don't understand, to be quite frank. We've seen and got to experience a lot of mean teachers and a lot of mean kids, and it's not fun. Like, everybody knows it's not fun to watch people that you love hurt and struggle and deal with those types of things. But on the flip side of that coin, we've also dealt with some incredible administrators. We've seen him have incredible friends that have taken great care of him and been so patient and helpful and friendly and loyal to him. And so I said earlier that Caleb has shown a lot of resilience from a baby to turning 2 years old, and through going through school and life and being a teenager and all of the hard stuff that comes with that. He has shown resilience, even with this part of him that learns differently and thinks differently. He's shown resilience in getting through and functioning with everybody else who thinks and learns differently than him. And a lot of things can be said about who Caleb is as a person. I think if you talk to the people that know him and love him and interact with him on a daily basis, they'll tell you that he's kind, he is friendly, he is so quick to forgive, he is eager to learn and eager to be involved. He loves to encourage people, he loves to learn about people, and for as much as he talks, he is actually an excellent listener. And he will make you feel so valued and so important because of the way that he will give you his undivided attention to talk about what you love and what you guys have in common and who you are and where you've been and what you've accomplished. And he will show up for you. He has spent hundreds of hours managing the sports teams at high school because he loves to be part of a team and he loves to see people win, and he's the one where if you're down 50 points in a football game, he'll turn to you and say, "No, it's all right, we can come back." He's resilient and he loves to cheer. And he'll cheer you on till the day that you lose an entire season of football. He loves to encourage you to be better. He loves to challenge you. My parents know this the most. He's competed and won statewide competitions for FCCLA. He's also been placed nationally for FCCLA. Caleb will never miss an opportunity to celebrate with you, and he'll never miss an opportunity to comfort you. My brother's a miracle, and he's been fighting for his vitality since the first day he was born. And a lot of people don't know much about him, or who he is, or where he comes from, or what he's been through. So if you know Caleb, maybe you learned something new about him. Maybe you didn't. If you don't know Caleb, I hope that someday you get to meet him, because he will absolutely change your whole world. So on your 17th birthday, I hope that you remember how special you are. I hope that you remember that you are vital. I hope that you remember you're a miracle. And I hope that you remember that this world is much better with you in it than it is without. And I hope everybody else realizes that as well. Happy birthday, little brother.